between the skies. Rely on yourself and no way. Believe.
Good morning, everybody. If I seem out of it a little bit today, I have reason. It has not been the best morning. It has not been the best morning, but I'm still here, so we will do what needs doing. Um, in any case, um, we're going to be talking about free will, and not Smith or the whale. Um, the reason the topic is free will is because of the last 2 days of um, atheistic discussion. Um, Two things have come up in that discussion, or in those discussions anyway. And that is the constant question that they have of, if God is who he is, do we really have a choice in the matter? And they bring up the idea of heaven and hell, that if you don't choose him, you go to hell. And if you do choose him, you go to heaven. But by proxy, what ends up happening is, if you don't choose him, you're not really choosing to do what you want. You're basically choosing to go to hell. And they say that's not really a choice. If it was a choice, then, and really did have free will, you could opt out of hell as well as opt out of heaven and do whatever you want to go to whatever choice you want. So in any case, that is what they bring up as free will. So the question rose in my mind as to, how many choices do you need for it to be free will to choose? Do you have to have three, four, five, or two? If you're choosing between this and that, do you need this, that, and the other for free will to exist? Because it seems as though mankind wants to have, the whole cake and eat it thing, except they want to be able to choose the cake, the kind of toppings, the size of the knife, the size of the slice they get, what plate it's on, the color of the plate, where the plate's going to sit, what kind of table, where's the house, what kind of house, in what state is it? Is it in disrepair? On what street? And what city, what state, what country, what town? They want to pick all of that with their cake, and they call that free will. Or is it as simple as, you have a choice to make between this and that? Because not everything comes down to multiple choices. Some things are a matter of, do this or that happens. But for some people, that equates to free will. But when it comes to God, the concept of free will has all of a sudden morphed. So we're going to talk about free will and whether or not mankind actually has free will. Now, by definition, free will is a voluntary choice or decision. The freedom of humans to make choices that are not determined by prior causes or by divine intervention. You can see that right here. We'll expand it a little bit so you can see exactly what it says, okay? So there you go, free will. Um, so let's start with the human side of free will, okay? Let's say that God does not exist at all. There is no God. Let's start with that premise. We are just here. There is no higher power to answer to, no evil to succumb to. It's just our choices that make our life. If that is the case, then does free will become a thing? Or do we only implement free will because of the antagonist in the room, which is God? If you had no God to answer to, and your own morality was up to you as to what was right and wrong, and everybody chose as they saw fit. Nobody had a handle on the right, no one had a handle on the wrong. How would you operate in that world? Obviously, here's the biggest problem: you would never know, because the world is still based on right and wrong. The entire history of the earth is based on right and wrong. We've had wars over who thought was right and who thought who was wrong. We have wars over it. We've had people murdered, killed, die over that. So the obvious first answer is you cannot negate the existence of right and wrong and the choices you have to make between right and wrong as the human existence. You can't do it. It's not possible. Um, the only alternative you have then is who is the decider of right and wrong. Now that we can remove God from. Okay, we'll remove God for a minute from the idea of right and wrong, but the existence of right and wrong is there. The next question is, who decides who is right and who is wrong? Now, judging from what the atheists say, it's the majority rules. So if the majority says something is wrong, it becomes wrong. But if the majority says something is right, it becomes right. So if at any point the majority switches from a topic being wrong to a topic being right, where is free will in that? Do I still have the free will to decide to do what was existing before as right? And do I still have the choice to pick what was originally wrong and is now right? Do I still have that choice? And do I then have to pay a consequence for the group decision to change what was right to wrong? And do I now have to kowtow to the group decisions of what was right before and now is wrong, even though my free will is telling me that it is not right anymore, but it's how do you navigate that water? And what do you implement on the people who decide not to switch? What ends up happening is you become God. But you're not calling it that. You're just calling it society. You're simply calling it the right to change your point of view. Because it's arbitrary. There is no set right and wrong in the world if you're telling me that the group decides it in mass, and whoever has the most to gain from it gets to pick. It sounds an awful lot like a dictator. Now, man can do that, but when God does it, there's a problem. Why? You see, the whole concept of free will is really based on mankind's selfishness. The Bible mentions a few things about will, okay? Never mentions free will, but it does tell you that you have the ability to follow God or not. It tells you you have the decision to follow. Many will not. Many will not believe. Some will. So that brings us back to whether or not we have free will with one or two choices or multiple. Let's get one thing abundantly clear. You have multiple ways you can go in life. And I mentioned this to the guy, Mr. Tux, before. But nothing is free from consequence. I found that out the hard way. Nothing is free from consequence. Not your reactions, not your statements, not the way you talk, not the way you speak, the way you look. Nothing is free of consequence. You may not think that consequence is due you, but you're not the decider of the consequence. You just have to abide by the consequence of your action because you're just acting. The other person is receiving. If they receive an offense and their decision to act on their offense is a certain type of consequence, you cannot then say, hey, you can't have that response. They're the ones that are deciding the consequence, not you. And while it may be a very difficult consequence, it's the consequence nonetheless. So does that remove your free will? Because in some world, you might say, oh, well, that I should have the choice to make my decision and not pay any consequence for it because it's free will. Everybody that says that wants to negate consequence, which is why they hate God. Because God has a set consequence. Mankind, because I mentioned they were selfish, wants one very important thing from God: the avoidance of his consequences. But they don't mind taking his blessings now. I mean, they want him to be all good, but they want to decide what good is. Oh, get your cake, get the plate, get the fork, get the location. They want to decide all of it, but they want all of the blessing that he could offer, but by their standard. So in essence, what they really don't believe in is free will. They do not believe in free will. Because if they did believe in free will, they would give God his free will as well. We've talked about whether or not God has free will. If you want to find out what I said about that, it's a couple of months back. But we're talking about mankind's free will here. I hear it talked about all the time. God is a dictator and he don't actually give you free will. What is free will if you choose between the heaven and hell? And if you don't do what he says, you go to heaven. If you don't do what he says, you go to hell. If you do what he says, you're going to heaven. That's not much of a free choice because it's one or the other. That's a choice. You abide by those same binary 1-2 choices all the time in the real world when man puts it down. Famous slogan, click it or what? Let's see if anyone can give me the remainder of that statement. Click it or, let me see if anybody can tell me what the rest of it is. Click it or what? Let's see if anybody can answer that question. Let's see how popular that statement is. There you go. Click it or take it. Okay. Like, you abide by that rule. Okay. You don't like it, but you understand the consequence if you don't put on your seatbelt. You understand the consequences if you speed, you get a ticket. You understand the consequences if you murder, you get jail time or sometimes a death penalty. You abide by 1 and 2 binary choices all the time. When man makes it, and you seem to understand it just fine, you got no problem abiding by it then. How do you make the differentiate? Because you say God has this really ridiculous criteria on you. You do it all the time to each other. Respect me or I don't respect you. That's a binary 1, 2, no 4, 5, or 6. It's just 1 and 2. Hit me and see what happens. Consequence. You know what? Let's take that hit me or see what happens. Okay, so this is what mankind is. One will say, hit me and see what happens. And the person that's being told to will say, well, it depends on what I consider a hit. No, it doesn't. It depends on what the person that gives the ultimatum considers a hit. Not you. Not you. If the person you are speaking to says, hit me and see what happens to you, and you decide to take your grandiose mind and say, well, this is a hit. This is not a hit right here. That's not a hit. I just touched you. If in the person who issued the ultimatum, in their mind, that's a hit, they have 100% right to smack the living mess out of you if that was their consequence. You don't get to decide whether or not a touch is a hit. The one that says, hit me and find out what happens is the one that decides that. Or how about this? Say another silly thing to me again and see what happens. Again, you don't get to decide what the silly thing is. The person does. Because they're issuing the ultimatum. When God said, this is right, and this is wrong, and if you do the wrong, this is the consequence, You can't come back and then say, well, I don't consider that wrong. Good for you, but it's still not up to you, especially when I'm the one issuing the punishment. $500 for a speeding ticket. That's too much. Good. You're still going to pay the $500 or go to jail. You fight it all you want, be upset all you want, but the set cost for a speeding ticket might be $500. For 1 mile over the speed limit, they can give you a ticket. Half a mile over the speed limit, they can give you a ticket. You know what you depend on? Leniency. You depend on leniency from mankind to not get a speeding ticket. You depend on a cop to come up and say, well, it was only 1 mile over the speed limit. I guess I could let it slide. Suppose you encounter a cop, and the cop is one of those stringent ones. The speed limit is 70. I clocked you going at 70 and a half. I'm giving you a speeding ticket. Now, of course, the more egregious over the speed limit, it goes into different categories of law breaking. But there is up to a certain limit, there is a price. And then there's another price on top of another limit above that. Okay. And that means anything from the actual set speed limit to 5 or 8, maybe even 10 in some states above it. And then from 10 and above, some of it can be considered a misdemeanor. Some of it can be felony. It's crazy how far up it can get to where you can actually go past a fine and straight to jail time. But if the cop was stringent and pulls you over because you are going 0.5 over the speed limit and issues you a ticket, is he right? Is he right? By the law, he is 100% within his purview to give you a ticket. But what you, as a driver, depend on is a cop saying, you know what, it's just 0.5. In fact, it's not even going to make a difference if you do hit somebody going 70 or 70.5. It's not going to make a difference in the damage. So why would I give you? You're depending on a cop to look at it that way for you on your behalf. He's not looking at it like that for him. He's looking at it for you. And you're hoping that he has that viewpoint. So he comes up to the car and he says, hey, I clocked you at 70.5. And you say to him, yeah, I couldn't even tell the difference between the 70 and the 70.5. And he says, okay, well, make sure you set your speedometer and try and change your car to a digital one so you can know exactly how fast you're going. And you say, well, that's an expense I don't have. Okay. Well, then go below the speed limit so you never break the law and go above it. Yeah, but I got to be somewhere. And if I calculated it right, 70 miles an hour gets me at a specific time. 69 and 68 doesn't get me there at the right time. So I got to go 70. Then change your speedometer to digital so you know what speed you're going. You see the cycle that you can get into, right? When you're trying to fulfill your will versus the will of the law. Okay, good. Does free will have a reign there? You do, because you have the free will to decide to break the law with 0.5 over and pay the fine and be okay with the fine, or not break the law and go 69 and be late for your appointment. Or here's another third option, since you like free will, leave home earlier so you can drive slower. Here's the excuse, man, but that's an inconvenience to me. I don't want to have to wake up earlier and then have to get that the whole 5 minutes early just to do that, because in the calculations and blah, blah. So what's into all that convolution for? The convolution is for this. Man does not actually want free will. Nope. Nor does man actually execute free will. What man thrives on is selfish will. Not free. Selfish. Man will preserve man's outcome for the best outcome for himself. That is what men do. They will look for themselves first. This is why they don't want to follow God, because he has to be first. The Christian no longer has what mankind would call free will. A Christian does not have free will. If you consider yourself a believer, you cannot have free will. All of your will is handed over to someone else for their decision making. They're right, they're wrong, not yours. You know who fully understood that? The same guy that we say we want to be like. The exact same guy we say we want to be like. In Luke 22, verse 40, when he came to the place, he said to them, "Pray that you may not enter into temptation." And when he was withdrawn from them about a stone's throw, and he knelt down and prayed, saying, "Father, if it is your will, take this cup away from me." There are two wills in that prayer, by the way. Because in essence, I would prefer the cup to go away. But I phrase it like this: if it's your will, take the cup away. But nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. So if we are striving to be like Christ, do you have free will? No. Nope. You no longer have free will. You see, by the definition of human standards, the free will is with, let me read it again, the freedom of humans to make choices that are not determined by prior causes or divine intervention. The accessing of your life into Christ's life removes what? The criteria of divine intervention from free will, which negates free will on your part the instant you become a believer. Before you choose God, yeah, you got free will. But you have free will within the confines of the law. And since you cannot dictate the law as much as you want to, because regardless of what we think, we can dictate. We can't dictate anything. Mankind has been trying for years to control everything in its life, and they've failed. They've conquered some things, but not even conquered. They're operating within the functions of the thing they say they conquer. You ever realize that? They didn't like gravity. Man should fly, so they built planes. Did they conquer gravity, or are they functioning within the confines of gravity? Huh? Did man actually conquer gravity? No. You can't. The plane still comes down. It's still functioning within gravity. You just managed to use gravity to get the plane up and go down. You didn't conquer anything. Okay, going down below water. You can go only so far before it compresses you. You didn't conquer the water either. You can only go so far. If you want to go in the air, you can only go so far. You can't conquer distance. You can only get so strong. You can't conquer that. You built bombs and guns and people still are there. You haven't conquered people. You don't live forever. You haven't conquered life. What has man conquered? Nothing. You can't avoid anything in this life. So if your free will is still binary. You either abide by the laws that are laid down outside of you, or you try not to, and you defy them. Now, whether you abide by them or not in your mind doesn't mean that your body still doesn't. It does, regardless of whether, like people say, well, I can fly. The free will in you says, yes, you can. Gravity says, nuh-uh, no, you can't. But you have the choice to jump off a building, don't you? You have the choice to jump off a building. Go ahead, jump off the building and see if free will keeps you from splattering on the floor. Go for it. Have fun. Free will. You know what the consequences of jumping off a building while gravity is enacted? Death. Just saying. Just saying. But keep believing that you have the power to add more choices to your life than you really have. Because here's the real crux of the matter. And this is why God is right. You either choose the right or you choose the wrong. And you can categorize both sides as much as you want, but there is still only one or the other. I don't care what variety of cake you pick. Guess what it still is? Cake. I don't care what you put it on. It's still cake. I don't care what you cut it with. It's still cake. I don't care in what house you put it. It's a cake. But in your mind, you get to decide all these other parameters, and that's your choice. Yeah, but you're building your periphery choices on one. It's cake. You still have your cake and you want to eat it. So do you have more than one choice? No, you don't. But you have the illusion and you're happy with the illusion. And therein lies the problem with mankind versus God. Man would much rather live in illusion and delusion than to live in an actual choice, free relationship that costs you nothing and gains you everything with God. Ain't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? That's like the man deciding to jump off a building to fly as opposed to taking a plane. This whole concept of free will is one, I think, that gives mankind the illusion of more power than they have. And it works. It genuinely works because people buy into the idea that you have power over your own destiny. And you technically do, but not to the extent that mankind wants you to believe. They want you to believe that you have so much control over it that you can build your own little world and produce the outcome in your mind that you will have to have. You get to decide the outcome, but you don't. It's built in. And you're not the one that built it in, so you cannot decide how it functions. You can't. There are natural selection issues that we talk about too, that the atheists talk about. And they want to talk about the death of this young person and the death of that young person. Why does that one get cancer and this one? And regardless of what you tell them about the binary choice that Adam and Eve made that resulted in the plate and the cup and the house and the street, but it's still cake. You get what I mean? Adam and Eve had a choice to make and they chose. And the resulting efficacy of that choice rippled through time. They chose a kind of cake. It was still a cake. And then from that cake, mankind decides to add all these extra stuff on it. It's still death. Mind you, it's still death. The cake is still death. But they've prettied up death to make people believe that you're choosing life. But you can't avoid death. Some people live extreme lives and they think they've really lived. But did you really live? If you do all the stuff that rich people do, okay? Say you do everything that rich people do. You fly planes, you travel extensively, you have everything you want, you can buy anything you want, you eat anything you want, you do whatever you say you want. What's the end result? Do you live? Do you live? Is that what you call living? You still end up dead, don't you? Name one person that's lived forever. Name one. Name one. Okay, better yet, name one atheist that's lived forever. Just one atheist. I just want to know one atheist that has chosen so well that they can define how their life goes and it can be for forever. How are you going to conquer the binary choice in life? I mean, you say there's no God, right? So there's no God. Let's say there's no God. And the cycle of life is outside of your control, is it not? Because you obviously can't conquer death because no one's lived forever. So how do you choose? How do you choose? How do you conquer death? Better yet, how in the world did death come about? Explain death to me. Forget explaining life because you'll never explain that one. I don't care what kind of scientist you are, you cannot explain life to me. Explain death. Explain death. Also, explain why mankind wants to try and beat it. If it's natural, embrace it. Do what you can in it and exit. I mean, there's nothing you're fighting, right? You don't have to worry about the end result. You die, you die. That you can't avoid it, right? That's what we keep saying. You can't avoid death. Two things certain in life: death and taxes is what they say, right? Actually, you can avoid taxes by going somewhere where there are no taxes. So taxes can be avoided. Death cannot. Explain death. Explain our inability to control death. Explain our inability to control anything in life. But you still say you have free will. You operate within the confines of something you did not create. You have no control over. It is random at best. How do you have free will? And why are you so concerned about a God who lays down right and wrong when you operate in the exact same field, but you feel like you have all these options, but they're not options if they're all part of only two? You either wear clothes or you wear no clothes. I don't care how much clothes you wear, and I don't care what type of clothes you wear, it's still clothes. One or the other. But mankind likes the illusion of having all these other options when it's technically only one or two. Some people have shoes, some people don't. So is it that you pick, you choose? Which is it? Where's your will? Where's your free will in all of this? Don't got it. You don't got it. But live in your delusion that you do, though. Chris, can you take care of Wesley Curry? He seems like he wants some attention to be exited from the room. So you can go ahead and eradicate that monster, please. That'd be grand. That'd be grand. Feel free to excoriate him first if you need to. I don't really care. So for all intents and purposes, you can continue to live in delusion that you have choices and try and place that as though God's limiting your choice. You have kids, right? Here's your choices. One people can follow God and one people can not follow God. Okay, good. Say you decide that there is no God. No God. Okay. And I want specifically, I want people who do not believe in God to answer this question. You don't believe in God. There is no God. Not even a matter of belief. You know there is no God. What is the purpose of life? And if you have a purpose for life, is that for everyone? Should everyone share your purpose? And if someone's purpose is contrary to yours, does that make yours right or wrong? Does it? And if you decide that that person is wrong, what does that make you? God? And should that person then be held by your standard? And if they don't agree to your standard, what then? Especially if your standard is self-preservation and their standard is your eradication. Which is it? Right or wrong? Because the same standard we say that other people are selfish, the same standard we hold God for, we don't want to hold ourselves to a selfish. We call it self-preservation. It is self-preservation. I'm trying to do the best for me, but not God. God can't do that. No, because that's different. Secondly, if there is a God and you have no power over him anyway, let's just say that's, from the Christian's perspective, no one controls God. Why would I even worry about even thinking about free will? He lays the ultimatum down. And the choice for me is what? Follow or don't follow. I either agree to the system of following him or I don't. But here's the difference between a binary choice of following God and not following God. The following of God requires one very important thing. One very important thing that most Christians don't want to. And what is that? What is the topic today? What is that one thing? The relinquishing of your own will. Which is what, really? Selfishness. You have to forego what you want. Accomplishable or not, you have to release what you want to what he wants. And I found that the breakdown happens when people cannot understand what that looks like. But they do understand what it looks like because they do it all the time for women and for men. They do it all the time in love stories. You ever find that kind of weird that they have the understanding of the concept when it comes to love in man and women, but they never seem to have that correlation done with God and man? I would die for you, girl. I'll move heaven and earth for you, girl. I'll do whatever it takes, girl. Going, no, you want me to go out? No, I won't go out. Good, I'll stay home. They call that simps, by the way. But in any case, that they can understand men doing that. They can understand women doing that. But they can't seem to understand that for a Christian doing it for God. Why? Not tangible enough. But that's okay. It doesn't have to be tangible for you if you don't want to follow God. That's the beauty of it. This is the beauty of this whole system that we work within. Nobody has to follow, believe, or trust God. You simply don't. That part, you don't need to. Now, being said, does not mean that you're not held to the consequence. You just need to be understanding that you better be okay with the choice you just made, one or two. You better be okay with the outcome of it. Whether you believe the outcome will happen or not, at least in your mind, be okay with this process. If it's real, I'll deal with it. I don't mind if an atheist believes like that. If there is a God, which I don't believe there is, whatever punishment I get, I get. I'm good with that. And since I think Nidhi is the only one in here, I think that might be an atheist. The other people, I mean, I know most of you are believers, but I think Nidhi is the only one that proclaims to be a atheist. I'm going to direct this question directly to Nidhi, although I'll have a conversation with him on Tuesday. But I want to ask this question. In your choice making to be an atheist, have you gotten to the point where you're okay with the outcome that you might be wrong? Are you cool with that? Are you okay with the outcome that you might be wrong? Because, many choices has many outcomes. So you have to calculate that into one of your outcomes just to be safe. So have you calculated that in the event that you are wrong, that you are completely okay with that outcome because you are completely okay with your choice that you've made based on your research that you are an atheist? Suppose you're wrong. That's the only question I have. Suppose you're wrong. Are you okay with the outcome? And look, if you say you're okay with the outcome, I'm not going to say, are you sure? No. If you say you're okay with the outcome, then you're okay with the outcome. I am glad that you have made the attempt to run down that rabbit hole and came back out saying, I'm good with that if that happens, because I'm also good with the decision I'm making for me. No. See, I don't want you to, and this is what I don't want you to do Tuesday. I don't want you to do this Tuesday. That wasn't the question. And the question only has one answer. It really doesn't have an explanation to it. This is the problem. And look, I'm not dogging you, but this is the biggest problem with atheists. I said, are you okay with the possibility that you're wrong? I didn't ask if you have to be okay. I didn't say anything about having to be okay. Big difference between having to be okay and being okay. There is a massive difference, and you may not want to admit that, but there is a massive difference between having to be okay and being okay with the outcome. I don't know how else to tell you that. There is a difference, a massive difference. Having to be okay means there is no choice. Being okay is there is a choice. So which is it? There is no choice or there is a choice? Because you have to choose, right? I'm just wanting to know. But if you've picked because of your research that, yes, I have weighed all outcomes, but this is the one I'm set in stone on, regardless of whether I'm right or wrong, for me, it is what I've picked. All other outcomes being looked at and decided on, I'm okay with all the other outcomes, whether or not they're real or not, because this is what I've picked. That's the question. That's the only question. If you're good with it, the same way like us Christians, we are okay with if there is no God. We picked a life to live that reflects him by his standard. Even if we die and there is no heaven or hell, we've lost nothing, and we are okay with that. That's what I mean. Because we've weighed it all. We've weighed hell, we've weighed heaven, and we've weighed nothing, which is pretty much what you go back to. Or heck, some of us have even weighed another planet, another afterlife. We've weighed all of that. At least I'll speak for me. I have weighed all of that against following Christ. And I am good with the one I picked, negating all others. So let me ask you a question. Did I give Tux the chance to give his nuance? It's a simple question. Did I give Tux his chance to give his nuance? I'm not going to stop you from giving your nuance. I've never stopped anybody from giving their point of view. That doesn't mean I can't give a back blow to it. Because if it is something that you genuinely believe, you can stand on it and not have me sway you. That's why I say to him at the end of that conversation, nothing you say will sway me. Why? Because I'm 100% sold on where I'm at. No evidentiary stuff, no thought process, nothing anyone can bring to me will sway me from where I'm at, because I'm a convinced, 100% convinced. And if you are too, then the nuance, you can say that all day. It doesn't matter to me, and I'm not going to be affected by it. So why would I try to stop you from giving your nuance? I'm not going to stop you from giving your nuance. I'm not going to stop you from doing anything. The problem with Tux is that he went on a whole different timeline about a question that I never asked, and that made the whole conversation go sideways. The conversation wasn't about politics. He brought politics into it and tried to link politics with God. I don't even know how that happened. But you know, I'm not going to hold you in the same vein as I did Tux. That you're different people. The same way you might share certain responses, and I expect that 100%. The same way I would expect a Christian to give the same response to every Christian that's out there. I should expect that because you're following one very specific thing. God doesn't change. So I should expect every Christian to give the same answer, but they don't. They don't. They don't give the same answer because not everyone actually follows God. They may follow a man, they may follow a teaching, a school of thought, a seminary, and every one of them has these, as you would say, nuances to their belief. And in that nuance comes what I would call their selfishness sneaking in. It's odd that the nuance always seems to be to the benefit of the person giving that nuance. You ever find that kind of weird? That every time you give a nuance to why you believe something, it's always to your benefit. I have no nuances, none. What is binary, hard and fast, and wrong and right? That's the one I live by. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Now, whether or not I'm comfortable in doing the right and the wrong is irrelevant to the being it right and wrong. That's irrelevant. My comfortability in doing wrong has zero, and I mean zero, to do with whether or not it's right and wrong, especially in the Christian world. I could be a Christian and totally content to party every night. And you know what my nuance will be? I can ask for forgiveness on Sunday. But the Bible speaks specifically about that. It says, shall you continue in sin that grace may abound? But my nuance gives me the right to do whatever, what, mind you, I'm not following the actual thing I say I believe. So yeah, I don't mind people giving a nuance. But the nuance, and no matter how many times I make an assessment of myself, does not change right and wrong, because I'm not the arbiter of right and wrong. God is. And the mere fact that mankind cannot agree on right and wrong when they try to do it for themselves tells you that you have no concept of what right and wrong is. You got none. Here's what I've heard, though. If it's to the benefit of society, it's right. What's a benefit? These are the questions I ask. What do you consider a benefit? And who are you to tell me that a benefit on your end dictates a benefit on mine? And why should I succumb to your idea of benefits versus mine? And if my idea of benefit confronts yours, do I then have the right to not only fight against your benefit, but to try and make my benefit supersede yours? Is that right or wrong? And if it is either one, who decides that? You see where nuance can get you, though? The benefit of having God is that there is no nuance. There is right and there is wrong. And that to me would be way easier than having a whole bunch of unknowns and nuance. And just give me right and wrong and be done. Just give me one or two. 3, 5, 6, one or two. Just give me one or two. One or two. In any case, we will have another discussion about this on Tuesday with Nitty. Now, for everyone's information, I have not met Nitty. I don't know anything about Nitty other than he says he's an atheist. That is all I know. I don't need to know anything else beforehand. That makes it even better. That way, I don't have any presuppositions about Nitty except for the fact that he is a atheist. And he says he's 100% atheist, a true atheist, which is good that he can at least have a stance of what he actually is, unlike Tux, who doesn't actually know what the heck he is. He literally has no clue what he believes. I can say that unequivocally. Tux does not know what to believe. He is in such a state of limbo that he can go lower than anybody else. He has a record right now. He doesn't know what he believes. But he does know that he hates God. That's the one thing he knows. He hates God. Which is crazy when you look at it from his perspective. He hates God because God doesn't exist. I don't know how you hate something that you know, but anyway. Oh, you think so, huh? That's good. That's good. That's good. He's been checking out my content, and maybe I'll be going in with an advantage. That's good. That is really good. Here's my only request, okay, Nitty? Here's my only request, and I won't email it to you. I will say it here so people have it in public. Simply answer my questions. That's all I'm asking. If you can answer my questions, whether I agree with the answer or not, that's all. I don't care if I agree with the answer or not, because I may not agree with your answer. Just understand that. I'm not asking you to answer a question so I will agree. I'm simply asking you an answer for the answer so I see if you have one. The problem with Tux, he did not give an answer. He went to something else and ran around circles and then came back and then lost the question. And no matter how many times I asked the same question, he never answered it. Just, you won't need to take notes. You won't need to take notes because I'm not going to leave the question until you answer it. Trust me, I'm not going to answer you 5 questions and then wait for you to go back through the 4th one. And no, it's one question at a time. I'm just going to ask you one question at a time. That's it. I don't inundate you with tons and tons of questions. You saw what I did with Tux? I just had one question. One. And every time he went off on a different, I just want that one. It's still the same question. Just answer me this one. No. But one question at a time. That's all it is. One. I'm not asking more. And if you give me the answer to the question, whether I agree with it or not, I will take your answer because that's what you genuinely believe. I don't know why that's difficult for other people, but I hope it's not for you. You say it's not, so that's good. That's good. And my questions aren't even like stratospheric. They're very, very like near the ground questions. They're not even difficult to answer, really. But in any case, we will have the discussion with Nidhi. Do you have a channel, by the way, Nidhi? I forgot to ask you that if you have a YouTube channel. You may not. You may just have a YouTube account, but I just want to know if you have a channel. Good. You do. I see it here. And it came up right away. That's good. Who is Nidhi? Or why is Nidhi? I want to see your face. Okay, good. All right, good. You don't mind if I put your face as part of the profile, do you? I just want to know. You're not going to be mad if I put your face up there, are you? If not, good. Okay, good. And what do you mean by that? It's not safe for work or faith. What do you mean by that? Please explain. That's the last question I'll ask you about, before. What do you mean by it's not safe for work or faith? What do you mean by that? I'm curious. That statement has me very curious. What do you mean by it's not safe for work or faith? I mean, I can understand maybe work because you can't view certain channels when you're at work. But what do you mean by it's not safe for faith? You mean that if I watch your stuff, I will change my mind about God? Is that I'm rough to people, joke about them if I find they are ridiculous or harmful, can be offensive. I use naughty words. I try to give some evidences against belief. Good. Bring them, please, to the table when you come. And I also don't have a problem with you sharing your screen if you have something to show either. I have nothing against that. Not a thing. The reason I picked Tuesday is because I have no other podcasts. We can go 2 hours if needs be. I have no problem with that. I'll make sure I stretch before so I don't get cramps. I'm old, And yeah, so look, I have, and here's the thing. Okay, this might be a Christian channel, but I'm not going to hold non-Christians to a Christian standard. I don't expect you to abide by that because it's not your standard. But if you feel like you should respect the atmosphere you're in, I leave that to you. I'm not going to try and curb your language. I'm not going to try and tell you, you can't say that. That's on you. I leave that to your respect level, not mine. I'm not going to beg you for respect, and I'm not going to say you have to behave a certain way on this platform. I've never done that. Never. And I'm not going to. The only thing I ask of people, and people can go back and watch, the only thing I ask of people is to answer my questions. That's it. Just answer the questions. And I will take into consideration that you have an advantage over me as well. I will, I will take into consideration that you have an advantage over me. Um, I don't know what advantages is, and I don't know. No. I just did. I don't set the rules for my platform. I set the rules for me on my platform. I set the rules for me on my platform. And I think this is where other platforms go wrong. They invite people on and they don't let the person be who they are. So I never get a real idea of who you are if I do that. I get a tamed version or a lie. I don't want that. I don't want a lie from you. I don't want a lie from you. Now, if it becomes to the point where every other word out your mouth is a cuss word, I can always go back, take the video down, edit it, and take out all the cuss words. I can do that. I have no problem doing that. But I'm not going to come at you and say, hey, look, you can't, and you can't, and you can't. Say what you got to say. I prefer your honesty than a watered down lie. I'm not playing that game. I'm not playing that game. I'm not playing that game with nobody. Okay? Fake like Puff Daddy. Yeah, I don't want to Puff Daddy fake. I gotta have legit. Okay? So Tuesday for Nitty. Oh, okay. So Nitty, since you don't mind your face being out there, if you don't mind, please send me a good, high quality picture of yourself. If you have one, you may not be vain, so you may not have one, but you can try and take one. And please send it to me on my inbox in in my email, and I will make up my thumbnail. Just send me a nice, good picture of you, and however you want it to look like, and all that stuff. And I'll make my thumbnail and set up the show for Tuesday, and I'll send you the link. And you just show up about 5-10 minutes early so we can get the volume check. I didn't get to do that with Tux, and his volume was way louder than mine, and it was really annoying. But I don't know how I'm going to rectify that yet, but I may have to. But the video is doing too well for me to take it down and edit it right now, so I'm not gonna. So guys, just make sure you're ready for that. Tuesday will be the discussion with Nitty. He says he has way more information and he has a better understanding than Tux. So he said Tux did not deliver his information properly and he was all over the place. And I could agree with that 100%, that Tux was kind of a little bit all over the place there. So just so you know. And do you want me to call you Nitty or do I call you by your name? I just want to make sure I don't want to put your name out there if you don't use your name. I just want to ask that one thing before we continue, before I close off the show. Do you prefer Nitty or do I call you by the name that you sent on the email? Nothing yet. Okay, then Nitty it is. We'll stick with Nitty. I don't have a topic for tomorrow yet, guys. You know how that works. I think you guys know by now how that works. So if there is none, you won't see a show. If there is one, you'll see one. So just so you know. Just so you know. All right. Well, with that being the case, we'll close it off. Hopefully my morning gets better. I doubt it. It doesn't look like it's going to get any more appealing. So it's a mindset change I have to have now. Choice. Choice. I live where the truth is or I don't. That's my choice right now. And I have to live where the truth is. So that's what I'm going to do. Live where the truth is. Thank you guys for tuning in. It was much appreciated. Scrolling at the bottom. Oh, and again, this weekend I'll be working on the commercial for the event this summer. So it should drop this Monday or probably even Sunday night. So keep a lookout on the channel for the commercial. It'll give you a good rundown of what's actually going to take place. So keep an eye out for that. And we'll catch you guys tomorrow for Savage Patriots. And Too Strong is dropping a bunch of videos here, so make sure you go check out Too Strong as well. I'm trying to think of what else, and there's anything else. No. Okay. Again, scrolling at the bottom, your options for helping out what's going on here. Don't have to. You know who to talk to. You know who to talk to about all that. I keep saying it, but I'm going to leave it to you guys to figure it out now. Since I've said it often enough, you should know who to talk to about that. So until tomorrow, or possibly Monday, but definitely Tuesday, we'll have a discussion then. We'll catch you guys on the flip side. Wisdom calls to you from the street. So please, please, please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight the dreams, for if dreams die, rely on yourself.